This is the story of the most audacious heist you've never heard of. A story written not in money or jewels, but in the relics of a saint revered by millions. Welcome back to Historical Hidden Gems, where we unravel the little-known, fascinating tales of world history. Today, let me take you back around 1200 years to the bustling Mediterranean port city of Alexandria, Egypt, and the beautiful water-bound hub of Venice, Italy. What ties these cities together isn't just trade, but a dramatic theft that forever changed history and created one of the most iconic landmarks of Europe. Ready? Let's dive in. Now, picture the Alexandria of the 9th century. It was an incredibly vibrant city, rich in trade, rich in culture, and rich in history. But in the midst of its glorious haze, Christian relics, particularly those of saints, were at constant risk. The year is 828 AD. Political tensions between Christians and Muslims in the region were climbing, and the Christian relics of Alexandria faced the threat of destruction. Enter two Venetian merchants, Buono da Malamocco and Rustico da Torcello. They were shrewd, daring, and seemingly incapable of resisting a good adventure. These weren't ordinary traders. They were about to pull off a plan that could go down as one of the most bizarre and ambitious ventures of the Middle Ages. Their goal? To smuggle the relics of none other than Saint Mark the Evangelist, one of the 4 gospel writers, out of Alexandria and into Venice, a trophy that would elevate Venice to religious and political prominence. And yes, this was the very Mark who is the patron saint of Venice today. Relics in the Middle Ages were treated like treasure, often more precious than gold. Not just for their spiritual aura, they brought pilgrims flocking, and with them came generous donations. For a city like Venice, claiming the relics of a gospel writer was like finding the modern-day equivalent of priceless royal jewels, or something even bigger. So the two merchants devised an intricate plan, worthy of a Hollywood script. First, they had to gain the trust and cooperation of the priests who were guarding the relics inside St. Mark's Church in Alexandria. You'd think talking a holy man into breaking centuries-old religious norms would be impossible, but the merchants understood their emotional leverage. They convinced the priests that if the body stayed in Alexandria, it would inevitably be desecrated. Protecting it, they argued, justified what they were about to do. But here's the kicker. How could they possibly smuggle the relics out? Oh, let me pause for dramatic effect because this moment deserves it. Imagine the risk involved. They decided to hide the relics in barrels of pork. Yes, pork. Remember, this was a Muslim-controlled territory where pork was considered unclean and inspection of such goods was often minimal. Experts today still marvel at their gamble. It wasn't just clever, it was downright audacious. The merchants loaded the pork-filled barrels onto their ship and prepared to set sail. But let's not skip over the tension here. The journey was anything but smooth. From port inspections to the constant threat of being exposed, it was an ordeal that must have sent their adrenaline skyrocketing. Finally, the ship reached Venice. Can you imagine the scene? The entire city greeted them as heroes. The relics of St. Mark were housed in a specially built church, now the world-famous St. Mark's Basilica. For Venice, this was more than acquiring relics. It solidified their identity as a powerful Christian hub in Europe. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The story didn't end in 828 AD. Legends and miraculous tales started to swirl around the relics. For instance, 200 years later, during the construction of the basilica, accounts claim the relics were briefly lost when a fire destroyed part of the structure. Panic took over Venice, and then, as the legend insists, St. Mark appeared in a vision pointing to where his remains lay hidden within the church walls. Now, if you think this sounds entirely romanticized for political gain, you wouldn't be alone. Scholars argue the Venetians used such stories to deepen Venice's religious mystique and control within Christendom. However, whether myth or reality, the relics became the anchor for Venice's architecture, culture, and identity for centuries. And we aren't done yet. Through centuries of wars, politics, and even Napoleon's invasions, these relics have remained in Venice to this day, or so we believe. Oddly enough, modern-day scientific studies haven't conclusively confirmed that the relics belong to St. Mark. That's right. The remains sitting beneath St. Mark's Basilica might not actually be his. And if you're wondering how Venetians look back at this thievery today, they proudly call it the translation of the relics. It's viewed not as theft, but as a noble rescue. One curious twist: while St. Mark's relics are the centerpiece of Venice's cultural narrative, Alexandria was left with what? While they lost Mark, they gained quite a historical tale to tell, a crucial memory tied to Christian and Muslim coexistence in medieval days. So why does this tale matter today? It highlights the thin line between faith, culture, history, and opportunism. The grand heist of St. Mark's relics is a chapter in history that asks us to question where sanctity ends and strategy begins. Who decides whether such acts, labeled as divine missions, are in fact audacious thefts? What do you think? Are Buono and Rustico heroes, villains, or just products of their time? Could this saga be a romanticized justification for someone's power play? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and share this episode if you love exploring history's hidden gems. See you next time as we unravel yet another forgotten chapter of human history. Until then, stay curious. And don't forget, history is all around us, maybe even closer than you think.